Hey you guys, so today's video is going to be answering some questions that I've been getting, especially after posting a TikTok and reel that I made about the benefits of indie publishing versus traditional publishing and kind of help you decide which route you want to go, okay? I indie publish. Bayou Bound Books is not straying away from that. I just like the control. Okay, so let's get into some of the topics. I have my notes here for you guys that I wrote down based off of like my experiences and everything like that. And just like more research that I did before I founded Bayou Bound Books and kind of everything like what's it about. Okay, so the control argument comes first, right? The thing about indie publishing is you own everything, okay? You own the title, the cover, the price, your release date, everything. You own everything. I understand that can be a little bit overwhelming, especially if you're new to it. But trust me, the excitement to put something that you've worked so hard for out in the world will take precedence over that. And I don't think it's as overwhelming as you think it will be. Yes, you're gonna come across some frustrations, maybe whenever it comes to like cover design or formatting and stuff like that, but everything's figure-outable and it's not as complicated and overwhelming as it seems right now. Like once you actually get down to it, it's more simple. It's easier going, in my personal opinion. Yes, you might change your cover 100 times, but guess what? That cover is your cover, okay? So with traditional publishing, yes, they can shelve your books for you. They will shelve your books for you, right? But you can also have delays in your timeline of like when it gets published and your launch and everything. They can tell you, hey, actually, I don't like your cover. It needs to be this. And you're like, but I refined it. I made it my own. I made it exactly what I wanted it to be. And now you're saying like, y'all don't want that? I don't know. Personally, that is a big deal breaker for me. But I genuinely, other than just writing and stuff like that, I enjoy art. I work a lot with oil pastel. So a big reason why Bayou Bound Books exists is because I can have that control. I can have the control over everything. Is like I said before, the launch date, the cover, this, that, the other, like it's all in my hands. It's not as overwhelming as you think, especially if you're a control freak like me. You'll want that, okay? It's not everyone's forte, and that's okay. That's why I'm making this video, to kind of help you decide kind of where you want to go, right? So moving on, let's talk money, okay? That's where I'm sure a lot of people are. A lot of people are like, look, authors just don't make money. Okay. It was a slow startup for Bayou Bound Books, okay? Let's just say that. Now, whenever I started Bayou Bound Books, I was working more than full-time as a bartender, okay? I was a bartender, I was a manager, I worked nights. It's a very social job. I was drained constantly. There was just a lot going on, okay? If I could have hit the ground running with it full force, I think things might have been a little bit differently, but I honestly wouldn't really change it. It allowed me to like kind of sink in, dip my toes, figure out my playing ground, figure out my angle, and all this kind of stuff. It gave me more time to work with. Do I wish I would have put a little bit more time, energy, and effort in? Yes, but I gave it what I had at the time, and that is what it is. That's in the past. We can't control it, okay? But traditional publishing, you typically make 8% to 15% of royalties. Now, if you were to go and publish on Amazon KDP right now, you're to publish your book, right? You get about 70% of royalties for like a paperback, a hardback, right? And it's not all about the money. It is, but it isn't, okay? But you make more off of royalties. Now, there's multiple different routes. You don't have to go just through KDP. I can make a separate video on that later, kind of about how I did it, the route I took, and what I am more shifting towards. So, for example, like I said, KDP, you make 70% royalty. Now, my website got up in about around March or April of this year. So inevitably, I do plan on ordering a bunch of copies and essentially making it where you order it off my website, I ship it to you, where the order is in my hands. The good thing about KDP is the fact that you don't have to own your inventory. Like, you're not a fulfillment center. Your house is not a fulfillment center, okay? And that's what I like. I like kind of like that almost like drop shipping option, that print on demand option. Now, you're going to hear a lot of people talk about things like Ingram Sparks. I forget the other ones. It's not something that like I went into. I just went into Amazon KDP. I'm not really sure about the other platforms, so I don't want to speak on something I just don't know. I don't want to mislead anybody or send anyone in the wrong direction. But the other thing is, you don't have to sell 1 million copies when you're working as an indie publisher, right? So if I wanted to have my work and say, these are my books, cool, I'm gonna sell them directly through my website. Yes, Squarespace will take up probably a small percent of its like processing fee and whatever. It's not that bad. I only pay, I think, like 3% or something. I don't know. I have to look into it. It's a shame that I don't know that off the top of my head. Song for another time, okay? But you don't have to sell 1 million copies. So if I could still have my book on Amazon KDP, and I could say, hey, I need 50 copies, okay? I'm going to hold these 50 copies at the house, and if someone orders it, perfect. I package it up, I mail it out, it's done. All I'm going to have to pay is printing costs. Now, if you sell your books directly through your website, you still are in control of your pricing, but you don't owe anyone royalties. Your biggest expense at that point is most likely going to be printing costs. It just depends on what your cover is, how big your book is it hardcover, is it paperback, yada, yada, yada. There's more that goes into it, but if you do decide to sell things on your own, obviously you will make more, okay? You have more control. Once again, with indie publishing, you just have way more control. Now, when it comes down to timeline, traditional publishing, you have a query, you have a wait, you can get rejected, and it's just a rinse and repeat cycle. And I mean, whenever I mean rejected, they just might not accept your book idea. They might not accept your cover design. It can just take years. I think average time for traditional publishing to get a deal is about 2 years. Could be more, could be less. Like I said, I didn't go that route, so I can't speak from experience on that, but I can speak on the indie publishing route, meaning I control it. Okay, I decided everything. For example, a book that I've been working on, it's called Chasing 25. I started writing it years ago, right? I finished it a little over a year ago, as far as like the outline goes, but I hadn't started editing. I freaking hate editing. That's a whole nother topic. Okay, but I chose the publication date to be July 20th of 2026. I am almost done with the round of editing that I'm on. I need to go in and import all those changes to my manuscript. What I personally do is I print out my manuscript. I do a line by line edit and stuff like that. Then I go in on what I use for my manuscript. I personally use Readsy. Anyway, I go in and I make all those changes, and then I'm going to reprint it and then do a read through and fix anything that I catch last minute, and then it'll be ready for publication. Am I on a timeline crunch? Yes. Do I like to say I work better under pressure? Yes. Is that the reality? No. No. Okay. By the way, don't be a burnt out editor. Just don't edit half asleep. Take my advice on that. If you know, you know. Just look at my book Prompt to Grow, or don't, because I'm kind of embarrassed by all the mistakes and everything. But granted, that was my first attempt at publishing, so forgive me, please. So next, as far as it's gonna go under the I'm so sorry. It's gonna go under the column of like gatekeeping, okay? So traditional publishing decides what's marketable. Like, for example, I currently write more in the mental health space because I really wanted to get those things out there. If you know more about my story, then you know. If not, we'll touch on another video, or go back and watch my other videos so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. I've touched on this topic a lot. But what my brand leans into and where it is fully going to go and sit is under Southern Gothic horror. So I could say, hey, traditional publisher, this is my book. It is a Southern Gothic horror. And they'd be like, that's not marketable for me. I don't want to get into that genre. I don't want to get into that niche. That's not what's selling right now, yada, yada, yada. But the difference with that is indie publishing allows you to have a very niche genre and find very niche readers. You can market it at different angles to truly reflect your book and your work and find your audience. Traditional publishing just isn't isn't quite like that. I don't know how to explain it because, like I said, I haven't been in that position myself, but I do know a lot about it. It goes into a lot of explanation. I can't tell you why they reject that, okay? I really can't, other than the fact that they're just like, this isn't marketable right now. This is not what's selling right now. That's not what's popular right now. Like, I think last year, romance was took a huge soar for marketing, right? Southern Gothic horror, probably not so much. It's okay. I write what I want. I publish what I want, when I want, to who I want, okay? So next, we're going to get into, like, the brand aspect of everything, right? So, like I said, I left bartending, and for about almost a year, right under a year, like 11 and a half months, I was doing full-time bartending, more than full-time bartending, and working on Bayou Bound Books on the side, right? I left my more than full-time bartending job May of 2026, and so now I am just full-time Bayou Bound Books, but I did build it from scratch, which, trust me, it was overwhelming, but for me personally, in my brand, I want to go through and make these resources, like this video, for example, and help people kind of streamline, okay, this is my idea, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to write about, this is my brand name, and I want to do everything. I want to full send it, right? But where the heck do I start? So you're going to see more videos like that from me, more of like the process, a more small business startup for indie publishing and stuff like that. You'll be able to find more videos from me about that topic in the future. I didn't have a lot of those resources that I really wish I had. I've looked into like downtown Houston and these communities, and I've spoke with some people, specifically from Houston Voyager magazine, which recently, like last week, featured me, which big win. I am featured in a magazine. It's awesome. You can look it up on Houston Voyager under Bayou Bound Books or Isabelle McGee, right? Really cool. Anywho's, so I just lost my train of thought. I built it from scratch, okay? And that's what I was saying. I talked to them about saying, hey, like, they asked me what my biggest struggle or some struggles that I went through. I wish I had more of that. Here's a small business guide. This is what you need to file for an LLC. What do you file under? Do you file under an S Corp? There's a lot of different options, and it is quite overwhelming. I wish I had some resources like that, so I am going to try to put together some resources for you guys to have that, so y'all don't feel as lost and overwhelmed as I did. I didn't know where to go, and frankly, I still don't know if I did it right, but I didn't have any problems with my taxes, so that's says I did something right. I don't know. The next is, you're not just an author, you're also a publisher, and you also wear 100 other different hats with indie publishing, which can be a little bit overwhelming on top of everything. Traditional publishing, they kind of handle all that, right? The difference is, for the brand, is distinction matters for longevity. I share my story, I share my hardships, I share the good times, the bad times, the frustrating times, the editing headaches, all that, and a lot of people can like relate to that. They can watch those videos. You build more of a relationship with people than you would through traditional publishing, right? Because here's your crowd, here's your community, you're DMing people, you're doing this, you're doing outreaches, and you could still do that with traditional publishing, It's just not the same. It's more hands-on with indie publishing, right? So here are the downsides with indie publishing now that we're kind of like getting into it a little bit more. Like I said, you wear every freaking hat. You are in control of your own marketing, your own publishing. You are your own cover designer. Shoot, you're even your own editor at times. Look, editors are crazy expensive. Cover designers, also not the cheapest. Fortunately for me, I like art, I like graphic design, I like those kind of things. So I can kind of build my own covers myself. Would a cover designer be awesome? Yeah, probably, but I do like having more of that control. You can outsource and hire people like editors. You can outsource and hire people like social media marketing, management, all that kind of stuff. But for indie publishing, you most likely, especially at the startup, you're not gonna have the funds. You don't want to spend all this money to get everything done and then you have no control over it and it not really reflect where you are or who you are as a brand. So that's the good thing. You have full control over that. It can be overwhelming. A lot of it goes into time management, playing around with different schedules. You can try 800 different schedules for yourself until you find one that works, and that can be quite frustrating. But that's more on the topic of doing that like more full time, right? Another downside of indie publishing is there's no advance. So with traditional publishing, let's say you get a marketing deal, right? You get a publishing deal. You can say, hey, I need an editor, I need a cover designer, I need all of this. I need an advance, right? I need money to help me get there. And they'd be like, okay, well, here's this, right? Like I said, don't forget, you make 8 to 15% on average royalties with traditional publishing. So let's say you got an advance. Your book is published. They give you a $5,000 advance. You will not see income on that publication until you break what you owe them, right? So it can be years before you make any money. And with KDP or independent publishing, it's just not quite the same. So for me personally, with independent publishing, I go through broker. I buy my own ISBN and my own barcode. I own the full intellectual property of all my work. That's $150. So that's my publication cost. Because I don't hire an editor, I don't hire a cover designer, I don't hire all these other people, I don't outsource, I do it all myself. Once I break $150 in sales from my royalties or for however I'm doing it that time, for me, like I said, I publish straight through KDP right now. I do not have my books on my own website. I don't want to be a fulfillment center. I'm still easing into doing it full time and everything. Will I get there eventually? Yes. Am I there right now? No. And that is okay. I'm not trying to put that extra pressure on myself. I am editing a book for a publication that's going to go out in less than a month. I don't have time for all that extra shit right now. But here's the thing. Once I publish that book and I break that $150 that it cost me to publish that book, as long as I don't spend any money on like ads and stuff like that, then the rest of that is pretty much my return, right? So I don't owe anyone money after that, which is really great. The other downside though is discoverability is on you. Coming back down to the marketing topic, you have to post on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever chosen platform you go to. You have to talk to people. You have to word of mouth people. You have to let people know this is what I'm doing, okay? You have to let them know, because if not, who's gonna know? Are you really gonna rely on Amazon's organic traffic? Don't recommend it. Don't recommend it. Up creek without a dang paddle, okay? That's all I'm gonna say. The other downside, well, I guess it's not a downside, but when it works for you, it works for you, which is kind of bittersweet, right? You might have 1 or 2 publications that you break even or not. And then you're going to have others where that $150 you spent, you're going to tenfold that, right? It's just about the right readers finding your books. And it's so hard to be like, I'm not in control of that. But guess what? With traditional publishing, you're not really in control of it either. So you kind of just have to pick. But with indie publishing, when it works, it works. When it doesn't, you move on. And you keep writing, you keep publishing, you keep doing your thing. It'll eventually come. It will. But the effort, the work, and stuff that you have to put in there is going to be a lot more. You just have to be willing to sit down with yourself and saying, I'm doing this. I'm hitting it with the ground running. This is what I'm fucking doing. So, with all that being said, neither path is necessarily a wrong path, okay? It's genuinely kind of what fits into your life, what fits into your needs. You don't want to design your own cover and do all this with indie publishing. You can outsource, okay? With traditional publishing, yeah, let's say you pay someone to do it. It still gets rejected. Then you're like, okay, well, now I either have to do it or pay someone else again to do it, right? Each side has its pros and it has its cons. One side is not so much forefront work. The other side is a lot more forefront work. And it's really just about building stuff, right? Anyway, subscribe, turn on those post notifications to see my future videos where I am working on building a guide for you guys that want to get into it or are just trying to figure out which path you want to take, right? It gets complicated, but it's a lot more simple than you think. It's not as overwhelming as it seems when you haven't started. Once you get started, I feel like it's not quite as overwhelming. And maybe that's just because I'm on the other side of it now. I'm sure when I first started, I was like, what the heck? Looking back now, it's not as bad as I think I thought it was in that moment, if that makes any sense. Anyway, in the meantime, before I get some other videos out, check out my website at Bayou Bound Books. I have t-shirts, coffee cups, merch for sale. I have my books published on Amazon. They are hyperlinked onto my website. You can also find them there, but it will direct you to Amazon. I also have a bunch of frequently asked questions, and I have like 45 blogs out there. So if this video didn't give you the information that you're looking for, scroll through my blogs. You might be able to find more information on it that really hits more home, or whenever it comes to wanting to know more about Southern Gothic horror, more about Bayou Bound Books brand, and stuff like that. Check that out there. With that being said, I will have my website, my books, my social medias linked down below. Until then, see you next time. Bye-bye.